Good morning, students. I hope you all are fit and fine and doing well at home. Students, in today's lesson, we are going to talk about summary writing. Students, we summarize every day in our daily life. For example, you have an event at school, you go back to home and tell your parents about that event in your own words. So, what are you doing? Yes, you are summarizing for your parents. In the same way, we summarize our favorite TV show for our friends, or we summarize the lesson for a friend who has been sick and missed the class. So, in simple words, in a short way, we can say that to write down the key points or important information is called the summary writing. So, students, these are the things that we have to do in today's lesson. First of all, you will read the text and underline important information. Then you will plan and write a summary, and after that you will present your summary draft. Now, how will you present your summary draft? You will write your summary and send to me by email. That would be your presentation. So students, summary writing is as easy as 5 minutes craft. Here we have few words craft. So summary writing is just like a few words craft. What are those few words? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Your summary should answer all these questions. Students, we know the story of Goldilocks and the three bears. Here, with the help of few words craft, we have summarized the story Goldilocks and the three bears. Let's have a look at the summary of the story. Goldilocks, a young girl who went to the house of three bears. She ate their porridge, broke a chair, and slept in their bed. She got scared when she saw three angry bears and never came back to the forest again. Students, these could be the possible questions that we need to answer in a summary writing. Who was the main character? Goldilocks. What was the main event of the story? She entered the house, she ate their porridge. Where did the story take place? In the forest. When did she realize her mistake? When she saw three angry bears. Why did she run away? Because she was wrong. She did wrong. She didn't take permission before coming to their house. How was the problem solved? She decided never to come back again to the forest. Students, there are some do's and don'ts that you must keep in mind for writing a summary. So, the things that you must do are: do write your summary in your own words, write key points and the major facts, write all events in order or sequence, only write the facts from the story. The things that you shouldn't do: do not copy sentences from the text or story. Do not write minor details, dates, and quotations. Do not write background knowledge. Do not write your opinion about the story or text. The story of Hansel and Gretel is here for you. Please watch, listen, read carefully, and write the summary.
Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time lived Hansel and Gretel. They lived with their father and stepmother in a house in the woods. Their father was a woodcutter. The woodcutter was very poor. He could no longer provide food for his family. One night his wife suggested that they take the children into the forest and leave them there. Hansel and Gretel heard what their stepmother had said. They were very sad. Hansel crept outside and found some white pebbles. They shone brightly in the moonlight. He filled his pockets with the pebbles and crept back inside. The next morning they all went for a walk in the forest. As they walked, Hansel dropped the pebbles along the path. They went further and further into the woods, and Hansel and Gretel grew tired. The woodcutter made a fire and told them to rest there. When they awoke, Hansel and Gretel were all alone. But Hansel's plan had worked. They could follow the stones all the way home. When they arrived home, the woodcutter was overjoyed. However, their stepmother was very cross. Later that night, she told the woodcutter that he must get rid of the children again. The next day, the stepmother gave Hansel and Gretel 2 slices of bread for their breakfast, and they set out into the forest again. This time they walked much further into the heart of the forest. As they walked along, Hansel dropped breadcrumbs along the path. When the children were tired, the woodcutter told them to gather wood so he could make them a fire. He told them to rest by the fire, and once again they fell asleep. When Hansel and Gretel awoke, they found themselves alone again. Hansel was not worried. He told Gretel about the breadcrumbs, but when they looked along the path, they found they had been eaten by the birds and animals in the forest. Hansel and Gretel walked and walked through the forest. Eventually they came to an amazing house. It was made of gingerbread and decorated with sweets, icing and lollipops. Hansel and Gretel began to eat the sweets when all of a sudden an old woman came out of the house. She invited them inside. But once the children were inside, they found out that the old woman was very cruel. She locked Hansel in a cage. She wanted to fatten him up and eat him. One day the old woman showed Gretel the oven where she was going to cook Hansel. Gretel decided to trick the old woman. She told her that Hansel was too big to fit in the oven. The old woman leaned forward to take a closer look, and Gretel pushed her into the oven. Next, Gretel found the key for the cage and unlocked it so that Hansel could get out. They were overjoyed. Before leaving, Hansel and Gretel had a look around the gingerbread house. They found a chest full of gold coins and decided to bring it home with them. After a long walk through the forest, Hansel and Gretel eventually found a path they recognized. They ran excitedly along the path and finally saw their home in the distance. There, outside the cottage, was their father. Their stepmother had died. Now they had riches enough to last their days, and they would never be hungry again. The 3 of them lived happily ever after. The end.
So here comes the presentation of your summary. Students, write summary in your own words. I would appreciate if you add some interesting vocabulary and illustrations from the story. Make it presentable and send to me. Have a good day. See you in the next lesson.